Testing.
If not, I'll take a motion to approve. Have a motion, Alderman Cates to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Have a second from Alderman Hahn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have reading correction of approval of minutes on the regular meeting for March 18th. Give you a minute to look over them and see if there's anything we need to change, and then I'll ask for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion from Vice Mayor Sutton to approve. Need a second?
Second as reading.
Mr. Duncan, second. Alderman Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.
you to take a minute and look over the special call meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion from Vice Mayor Sutton to approve. Need a second? Second from Alderman Cates. All in favor? Okay, at this time, we have comments from our citizens. I want to start it, I'm gonna start it off with a young man who is here to make a presentation to us tonight on the Scout Project. Members of the board, Mr. Tyler, would you like to come up and make a presentation tonight?
Absolutely, sir.
You approach the desk and state your full name and your address, please, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Joey Tyler, sir, and I live at 20 Oakland Drive, Oakland, Tennessee. And I am here with Troop 133 in Oakland, and I'm here to present a Eagle Scout project, and it's going to be a bulletin board that will cost approximately about $500, and it is an 8-foot by 3-foot frame with a locking fiberglass cabinet to control information on the board in the park of Northwood Estates. That pond, you know, with the parking space and stuff. I was gonna try to put it in between the sign that's already there for, you know, no motorboats or vehicles or dogs or whatever, and in between there with the parking spot. I have pictures if you would like me to present them, pass them out around the board.
Okay. If anybody would like to look at the pictures, the gentleman has them.
I'll look at it. All right, cool.
Yeah, I've already seen since you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna say that's not what it's gonna say.
Not gonna say ball top, whatever. Yeah, I like it. You do?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
I like when they're, yes, right.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Looks nice to me.
Mr. Tyler, would you like to add anything else, or
Any questions about it?
No, sir.
board members have any questions?
Well,
Is it gonna have this brochure, is that like a plastic thing, or
Yes, sir. It's gonna be a brochure on the side.
it's gonna have a plastic thing?
Oh, yeah.
What about the bulletin board, is it gonna be open?
Oh, yeah.
is there a base of just grass?
Yes. It's,
Just grass?
yeah,
just
well,
dirt and
we're gonna
grass.
put concrete forms around the posts. It's secure.
Alright.
All right, sir. Thank you for your presentation.
Yes,
We
sir.
appreciate your efforts on the behalf of the city of Oakland and look forward to seeing you into your project.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other citizens wish to address the board tonight?
Russ Emily, Village of Riverwood. Only 2 items tonight. First one is from last month. Do we have anything on our streets? They're getting ridiculous now. And our neighborhood would like to hear more than I'm overwhelmed. The second item is, it's that time of year again. Easements. And for Alderman Hahn, Fisher, Jay, Mayor, this has been going on for 3 years. There's an area, the retention pond, the overflow, is owned by somebody else. But to bring you guys up to speed, the city's been cutting this for at least 3 years. It was not until last year that Alderman Sutton insisted, what were you doing there? Well, they're now back charging whoever owns this property. Well, this ravine now is overflowing into the street. The neighbors, their security system's going off because the rats running around. It needs to be cut. Not next week, not next month. It needs to be on a schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
May I ask?
Mr. Johnson, you want to respond?
Why is the homeowners association not maintaining the
We don't
property?
have a homeowners association.
It's a common area with no homeowners association.
This property is owned by some corporation in New York, is what I was told.
Signature Investments, probably taken back over by the Bank of Bartlett.
But for the last 3 years, the city has cut it.
What, I have a question. What area is this in?
It's on the far west side of Villages of Riverwood.
It's a detention area that, when they dissolved the homeowners association several years back, somebody bought that off courtroom steps and, thought he was gonna build something there. That's a little history on that, and then,
It is not owned by the city.
no, sir, it's not.
Then I guess my question would be, if it's not owned by the city, why would we be cutting? Why would they expect us to cut it?
If it becomes a public nuisance, then we have justification to mow it. And as was indicated, we have, I believe, actually gone to court to recover the cost that the town's incurred. I'd defer to the attorney.
Well, there are some of these common area spaces where the town has begun following the ordinance to notify the property owner that the property needs to be cut, and if the property owner doesn't cut it, then the town will cut it, and the town will then either sue to collect or assert a lien. The problem with these common open spaces is that some of these property owners just don't care if their property is liened up.
Okay.
And so you're faced with two unwinnable options, which is lien up property that nobody really desires to try to defend as a property owner, or sue a corporation in New York that a judgment against would be uncollectible. And so, you know, the third option is to continue to cut it, assert your lien against it, and then the town ultimately take it back in a tax sale. And then the town's forced to own it and keep it
I
up.
don't want it.
I got a question on that.
Why would you want a piece of property that's,
Well, the town
Has no
wouldn't
value.
want it, other than the fact that the town, you know, has some obligation to keep, you know, health hazards from developing, and if there is a health hazard that might be developing as a result of lack of maintenance.
But I got a question.
May I follow up on that for one?
Okay, I'll get to you next, Mr. Cates, let me get.
If in fact it's a functioning detention area, then there would be a long-term interest in the town maintaining it. Now, I agree with you, that incurs cost, but we certainly don't want anything we don't want that property to become such a problem that it loses its ability to function as a detention area.
well, I don't think, I think, I know detention, retention, I know it's different, but there's no pond there.
Yeah, I didn't think so, no.
So it's, the only thing it's detaining is high grass and some trees
Well,
and rats evidently.
presumably it will retain stormwater if we have a high rain event, presumably.
It's a drain out of there. I think it might have been one when they were building over there, they might have had it, is that right, a detention pond?
Water runs through it when it's raining
Yeah, it's a drain.
and it dries up.
Okay, Mr. Cates.
When we cut that in back charge, that company out of New York, the bank has took that back from them, what I understand, and now they sell it to developers on the backside. Is he responsible for that spot that they're talking about now too?
Well, again, there's been several properties that the town has now begun to cut and then charge the property owner. With regard to this property that was owned by this outfit out of New York, Signature Properties out of New York, the town was fortunate in that the Bank of Bartlett did take the property back, and they paid the town the grass cutting fees that were properly documented. So those fees have been paid, and as long as the Bank of Bartlett owns it, they're either going to probably maintain it themselves, which I would think they will do.
That was my question.
Well, hold up just a second. I may throw you a smoke cloud here, okay?
Okay.
So if you remember, they didn't care if we put a lien on that property, but they had more property. They had 216 acres behind that subdivision over there, and we put a lien on that property, but I don't know that the Bank of Bartlett took this other land back. I don't know. We'd have to check. But the reason why the Bank of Bartlett paid that mowing contract is because the lien on the 216 acres to the east side of Bowers Road, on the rear.
I think that's right.
Okay, so now, if we did put a lien on it, or we may have just threatened, and then they paid, and then they took that piece of property back, and then left this other piece of property there. Now, if the Bank of Bartlett took that detention area back, that's a blessing. But I'm not sure that's why they paid that bill. I think it was over the 216 acres
And
that they
may have
paid the
been why
bill.
they paid it.
Mr. Jeff?
Has a letter about the height of the grass and condition of property been sent to whoever the owner is?
I think we're talking about two different owners and two different properties. Mr. Minor, we went to court on the detention basin here a couple of weeks ago.
All
I
right,
didn't
was
hear
that
about it.
Lee Tate?
That's Lee Tate
Okay,
property.
so
That's
yes.
what Mr. Russell was talking about, is the Lee Tate property.
Okay. So let me just bring the board up to date on that. This particular property, we negotiated with Mr. Tate, and once again, because he realized that he owned common open space that really had no value, he was not willing to pay to have it cut, nor did he care whether it was leaned up. And so we sued him individually, which the statute and the ordinance allows the town to do, got a judgment against him, and then we took that judgment and liened up his home. Okay? So there is a lien now against his home.
Okay.
So, through the course of following up on enforcing that lien, which takes time, he could ultimately have his house sold. And we're trying to explain that pay us now, because now that we have a judgment, the town is accruing post-judgment interest of 6.5%. So, I mean, it's a pay me now or pay me later for Mr. Tate.
Okay.
But, I mean, that doesn't-
Okay, so let me see if I can sum this up.
Right now, I understand that.
Let me see if I can sum this up
May I add, Mr. Mayor?
when I get through.
There's another piece there.
So we have approached the gentleman who owns the property. He has refused to cut it, or shows no interest in cutting it.
Correct.
We have filed a lien against him,
Correct.
and this will take time to work its way through the court and the process and all that.
Correct.
In the meantime, should the city keep cutting that and keep charging him?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if it's a health hazard,
All right, I guess what I'm asking here, sir, is I need you to go out there, or I'm not your boss, Mr. Johnson is, but I would request that you go out there and look at it and determine if it's a health factor, and if it is, you and Mr. Johnson discuss how we want to handle it.
We will go ahead and send Mr. Tate another letter, because the procedure for us to cut grass in the city limits is, we send a letter to the property owner,
Yes.
10 days after, or 13 days after we send the letter, we notify Harvey, Harvey gets it cut.
Okay.
And we'll do that tomorrow.
Mr. Johnson, would that be satisfactory?
Thank you.
All right, sir, I'm ready for you now.
Also, on the same piece of property just behind 4 homes on Oak Hollow and Oak Ridge, which is actually near one of your inspection stations, that is also his property that was always cut for the last 4 years also by the city. And directly across from that is a fire hydrant that you can barely see again, Chief, which is where we had a fire 2 years ago on Cosmo,
Okay.
which is a hazard to his men if they have to use it.
Yeah, he owns two pieces of property in Villages of Riverwood. One of them is a Riverdale address, and the other one Oak Hollow Drive.
Okay.
If I may, we need to take a step back
talking
here.
about Lee Tate.
If I may, we need to take a step back here. The city cannot go on authority to do so. We have to go through the procedure through the Building and Codes Department or some other procedure. If the city was out mowing property that we don't own, that's private property, we can't do that.
We almost got in trouble one time with the former mayor doing that.
Okay. I guess I'd like the two gentlemen back there and you to take a look at this and see where, and maybe Mr. Tom can help us out and we can figure out where we're at and try to make everybody somewhat happy. We're not gonna make everybody happy, but let's try to make everybody happy.
I readily acknowledge that oftentimes the city has to mow property. I'm not
Yes, sir.
saying that. I'm saying there's a process, a procedure we have to go through legally.
Okay.
I
All
got-
right. Mr. Hahn,
And we have the ordinance for the streets, and I believe it's 55 degrees consistently, is that correct? Is that our ordinance for any kind
Oh,
of?
paving? You talking about paving?
Yes.
I think it's changed, and
okay.
I thought we, not, well, my question is, and if you're, I can answer you, it's coming. We gotta wait for the weather to break a little bit, I guess.
Well,
If people had a planner, they would have known the same thing happened last year at the same time, and the year before, and the year before.
and we're trying our best to address it because we weren't here year before.
And that's why I wanted to bring
That's
you guys
why
up to
he
speed.
apologized.
So we will address it in a proper manner through the city manager and the proper authorities and in a legal process as advised by Mr. Tom.
And my one neighbor will love to see the rats go.
Well,
Mayor,
yes, sir.
item 11 is discussion of street paving.
Okay.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I'm not into street pavement, I'm still cutting grass. All right. Now, we're through mowing for right now. I'm sure we'll mow again sometime down the road. What else? Does anybody else have anything they wish to address us tonight? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the comments, and we will try to address them. It's now my turn to do a little talking. I've had the pleasure this week of visiting with a few people about different projects, from fire stations to houses being built not up to code by developers not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I've tried to look at some things. I currently had a gentleman talk to me today about education in our city and what we can do about the high school part of it. So I'm in the process of talking with some people about that. We have a tremendous amount of items on our agenda, ladies and gentlemen. The growth of this community has put us in a situation where we need a new fire station, we need a new water and sewer addition. We could stand a new city hall because we've outgrown this one. There are a lot of items on our agenda, and we're going to address them as rapidly and as fast as we can, and in the most prudent manner we can. So I would ask you to be patient with us, and we know the streets are terrible. I drive over them, we all drive over them. And we're trying our best to address them too. And as more money becomes available, we will put more money into streets because they need it. Thank you for listening to me. Department head reports. Does anybody have anything they want to add to their written reports? Any department heads want to add anything to their written reports?
I would.
Okay, got Parks and Recreation, Ms. Seagrave.
You guys have a contract on your desk tonight for Shred It. It's an annual event that we do, but since you guys wanna see all the contracts now, they come through you guys for approval. But we do this the second weekend in June every year, 9 to 12 on Saturday, community loves it. So, it's just the contract for you guys to approve. Later, I guess, in the agenda, but I know Mr. Johnson didn't know about it. I don't know if the new board members knew that this is an annual event that we do.
We're unaware it was an annual event. If it is, it is. And, do you need any approvals from us or
I mean, you'll
anything?
just have to approve the contract later down the agenda.
Down the agenda of the contract?
Has it been a successful event?
It has, I mean, the community looks forward to it. I get phone calls at the beginning of the year about it, so, yeah, it has.
Okay. defer to Mr. Johnson and how he wants to handle it. And,
Total cost is 900?
2 trucks for 4 hours on a Saturday.
Is there a PO?
Not yet, well, there is currently, but it's not.
There will be?
There will be.
Thank you.
Before it happens, yes.
Do we utilize that as well? I mean, as the town, do we shred things?
It hasn't been in the past that we've done that because we have our own shredded contract within the city hall.
I guess if you did, you'd have to save it a whole year before you could shred it, if you didn't do it yourself, right?
Well, I mean, like I said, we have availability to have a, placed up in the shredded box here, they pick up every Monday.
That's what I'm saying.
Trying to figure out how this
They'd have to
plays
keep
in,
it.
A whole year.
how this plays into Director Seagrave's,
Well, it's just a
Right.
It was
community
always
event
a
that we-
Park and Rec's community event that Brandon and,
Well, I mean, it was here when I started,
Yeah.
when Marshall and Neil and everybody before that.
yeah, I understand it's been going on a long time, but I mean, when we're sitting here looking at budget deficits and ways to do things and spend money to have a shredded event, I just don't know if that's spending the money wisely at this point in time, when we're sitting here looking at, some shortfalls.
would you mind telling me when that's supposed to be done?
It's, June the 19th.
Mr. Johnson, would you take a look at this, please, sir, and report back to us in our May meeting? And let's, again, it's just one of those things that's been handled properly in the past, and we need to follow proper procedure. So we will do that, Mr. Seagrave.
All right.
Chief?
Yeah, I just want to remind you on April 24th, National Field Take Back Day, Walgreens from 10 to 2. So come by and drop off your old prescriptions safely. We'll be out of our parking lot.
What's the cost of that?
It's free.
Okay, good.
You wanted to make sure we knew it was free, right?
I've seen that commercial.
Any other department chair have a comment? Yes, sir, step up.
Yes, I'd like to take the opportunity real quick to just mention in a public meeting that we have 2 vacancies in the Public Works Department. We've had ads for several weeks, it's been on the website, very little feedback, so I just want to take a minute to announce it in the public meeting that 2 full-time positions available at the time.
What are those positions, sir?
They're in the Public Works Department, general labor.
General labor?
Yes.
Okay. What is
They
the,
include benefits.
they do include benefits?
Yes.
What are the benefits and salaries, starting salary on them?
Starting salary is $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, same benefits that I get and everyone else.
Standard city
Yes,
benefits,
standard benefits, yes.
okay?
So if anyone's interested, pick an application up at City Hall or download it from the town website.
Yes, sir.
Get it to City Hall, we'll be glad to hear from you.
Thank you, sir.
Update on the black ankle pump.
Yeah. We had to order some equipment, we're gonna try, as soon as it comes in, we got one last effort to try, if we are not able to do it in-house, and we've tried uncountable times, we may have to look at getting someone else in here to get it. The pump is up and running, the pump electrically, everything's sound, mechanically, it's all been done, the problem is, over the time that it's been sitting, sludge has built up in the bottom. Every time we turn that motor on, it'll run about a minute or 2 minutes, and it gets stopped up with sludge. So we've had companies out, and the problem is it's so deep, they can't get down to get all the sludge out. So last week, we tried to, there's an incoming valve to stop the incoming flow. The plan was close that valve, get the trucks back out, do it again. The valve doesn't close all the way. Two trucks couldn't keep up with the flow coming in. So where we're at now, we ordered plugs, so we can put in the incoming lines. And we're waiting on those to come in, stop the flow coming in, hit it one more time, and get it cleaned out, and hopefully turn it on, and it'll be fixed up.
How many recess stations like that do we have?
I believe it was 4.
Are we still looking at putting them above ground?
Yes, sir, as long as I'm here, I will never allow another recess station in Oakland.
What's the protocol? I mean, what are we doing different on these other 3 now to make sure it don't happen again?
Telemetry, I think, is the biggest thing. We've had a sample, if you will, a demo on the pump station for quite a while. And there's some things that are involved in that would definitely help eliminate this, or at least alert us sooner.
If you plug that incoming line, is it so long you can keep that plug before it
Yes.
starts backing up people's house?
It won't back up in houses.
Or would it back
Worst
up
case
there?
scenario, it would overflow a manhole. We know where those manholes are, we know about how much time we
What about the Argo force main project we have?
Moving along very well. They were actually wanting to do a tie-in on the north end tomorrow. I'm not gonna let that happen. We have too much stuff we have to do to line that up. Hopefully we can do that the first of next week. The only thing left would be tie in at the treatment plant, and that it would be in service. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, we'll be able to get that open and running.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other department heads? All right. Mr. Johnson?
Nothing this evening.
Nothing from Mr. Johnson. Moving to reports from members of board. Adequate facilities tax, Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, and Mr. Walter, I may need some help on this. What fee do they charge? I know it's y'all's responsibility before y'all issue a permit to make sure they've paid that tax before y'all can issue one.
That is correct. It's about 50 cents a square foot heating. And, the county gets an adequate facility tax on an average building permit. They get almost double what the town gets on our building permit. So every house is built, the town benefits almost twice as much, about 80% more than the city does.
I guess Mr. Minor saw the agenda. He had a Publix Acts that he showed me. I put this on there. I've done a lot of research on this and probably should have called up here and got this. But basically, let me tell y'all what this is. So the state would allow Oakland to do this if the county hadn't. So a lot of communities that have experienced high growth, they put this tax in to cover the things on the infrastructure that property tax and sales tax won't cover because of the high growth. They projected Oakland and Fayette County to have a 14% growth rate. In 2000, there was 28,000 people living in Fayette County. In 2018, it's 39.7 is what it was. So now we're over 40,000 in the county. And of course, Oakland has grew at a much faster rate than Fayette County has. Well, this fee, adequate facilities tax, its main purpose is to help out on the development from the rapid growth. So they passed this private act in 2001, and I don't have any idea where $1 of this adequate facilities tax has been spent back in Oakland on our facilities. Facilities is defined, I wanted to read this to you. Public facility means any physical improvement undertaken by the county or city, including but not limited to the following: roads and bridges, parks and recreational facilities, jails, law enforcement facilities, schools, libraries, government buildings, fire stations, sanitary landfills, water, wastewater, drainage projects, airport facilities, and other governmental capital improvements.
Did you use the word cannot?
No, sir.
No.
Can. So needless to say, all of our problems that we're sitting here facing right now, we should be getting help on this adequate facilities tax back to our developments. And I understand that everybody has their own problems. But this facilities tax, I really believe we need to take action, y'all, and give Mr. Johnson, and if he wants to get council involved, but we need to pursue this and find out where our money, because it says that this money has to be spent back within a reasonable time. Well, I'm going to say 20 years is a reasonable time that we should be seeing some of that money. And look, for those that don't know, it may seem far-fetched, but we didn't get any money from Somerville's gas company either till a few years ago when we went after it. And I say we go after the money. We're footing the bill, just like Mr. Walter says. The county's making twice as much money on a house being built in Oakland than Oakland is. And we're suffering every bit of the infrastructure problems that Mr. Fisher brought up at the workshop. But there's monies out there that the county's getting that could be spent back here. So I really think that we need to do something about it. We need to get the ball rolling.
What's the plan of action on that?
Now, I know this, that a few years ago, and it may not have been 2 years ago, but in recent times, the county was even trying to raise that tax on developers. 2 years ago. Well, our chief executive officer of the town and other municipalities within Fayette County met and raised Cain about it because they didn't want it to affect the growth. But us as a board, we're saying, hey, that's not on us. It's not even on our taxpayers. That's the developers paying that fee. But for some reason, our administrative officer thought that it was too much on the developers to raise that fee. But here's the thing. I guess it didn't matter because I don't know where $1 of the money's been spent. And so,
Most of it's been spent on retiring the debt on the criminal justice complex.
well, according to this, do you know when that was built?
A long time ago now.
Well, was it in the 90s or was it in 2000 or?
2000. It was 2000.
I know this, that adequate facilities tax, it says in the private act that it can't be spent on any previous debt. So if that development wasn't started till 2008, it can't be spent on previous debt to the jail. If those houses were built in that development, after that was built, it's what it says in the act, it can't be spent on previous debt.
Does it say what percent we're supposed to get back on what we paid?
It says the fees should be spent. That's what it says. It don't say a percentage, it says the fees.
So we getting all that back.
It should go towards the facilities of that development.
It doesn't have a distribution formula.
This don't.
Vice Mayor, would you be receptive to us rescinding a, open, open records, there you go, thank you, sir. Open records request for this?
Absolutely, I'll put it in the form of a motion. I make a motion that we allow Mr. Johnson to use whatever resources necessary, including the town attorney, to get to the bottom of where all our adequate facilities tax has been spent in the last 20 years.
I have a motion from the Vice Mayor to send a, open records request to the county in seeking answers to this question. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second for Mr. Hahn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Johnson?
Can I ask a question real quick?
No, 1 second, now get right with it. Mr. Johnson, would you please proceed with that and
Yes, sir.
let us know something? Now, Mr. Cates.
Going back to what Vice Mayor Sutton said a while ago about the gas, I think, did we not have a meeting with the mayor and their town manager over that, Ken?
Yes, sir.
So maybe that would be a start.
And supposedly, and this would, may help Mr. Johnson, but there's supposed to be a board that the county has called the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, if you have any question about the way the fees are spent. And so I would also, if you could, send me an email. I want to know who's on that board, and hopefully, since we are sending so much revenue there, maybe it's a few people in Oakland that's on that board that can help us out.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
if I may reply to Alderman Gates's question.
Yes, sir.
This year's budget, was $39,900 for the pilot, payment of tax from Somerville, and we've actually received year-to-date just over $45,500. So
Is that in the gas?
yes, sir. So that is working, that is working.
I know the first time it was brought up, Vice Mayor Sutton brought that up, I think the first year, if I'm not mistaken, we got like 45,000, but we could only go back 2 years, am I right?
No, they actually, we were in a pickle. So, I mean, we just got it started luckily, and I hope we continue to get it.
So how much you say we have to date now,
This year, just over 45,000.
this year?
Yes.
Well, is this gonna be the same thing if we go after this money as well? Is that they're only gonna go back so far?
I think that'll be up to the city manager attorney to determine. From what I'm hearing said, it can go back to 2001.
I mean, they've got to show where those fees have been spent. Surely to goodness they ain't spent our money somewhere else.
Especially in Piperton.
Vice Mayor, I think when they were trying to increase the adequate facilities tax,
Could I have quiet, please?
when they were trying to increase the adequate facilities tax, somebody had done some research and found out that the money wasn't going we
configure.
can do something financially to get them in line legally where they're spending the money. I don't have a clue. I've heard bits and pieces of that.
Would you further, thank you, sir. Mr. Vice Mayor, would you further suggest that we invite the county mayor here to talk with us about this?
And I'd love to meet with this Board of Adjustments and Appeals.
If I may, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Based on your discussion, Tuesday night at the study session, I have prepared a letter to the county mayor and the county commissioners who represent this area, suggesting a joint meeting in May. Now, that wouldn't, this could be a topic for that, but I mean, I've already got that ball rolling.
Is that on the fire department, more or less?
It's on, as I wrote the letter, and we could change it, obviously, we would have probably about a half a dozen items on that agenda.
Yeah, I don't know if, I
Fire
mean,
department be one of them, obviously.
about 300 and something calls a year we make to the county. They got money to buy 5 fire trucks, 6 fire trucks, total of 8 over 2 years.
Thank you, Chief.
And we make more calls than the county than any department they have out there. They give us $35,000 a year to make those calls. Y'all, it's time that somebody steps up to the plate and starts paying Oakland back. We are facing a world of turmoil here.
All right. I think we've given you enough to do on the adequacy tax. Mr. Johnson, Mr. Vice Mayor, do you have anything else you want to add, or you?
No, sir, I'm ready to move on.
All right, we'll move to the next topic. Internet, and I'm interested in this one. Internet sales tax audit, Mr. Sutton.
Yes, I just find it hard to believe that I read that Somerville has an excess on their sales tax revenue and we have a deficit. I can't drive in any neighborhood in Oakland without seeing an Amazon truck, a FedEx truck, or a UPS truck. So I want to know how we go about determining, and I know we have a lot of houses that have outside zip codes, but we probably have some in the county with the Oakland zip code. But I want to figure out, I want to know how much Fayette County is getting. I want to see a report on how that money's being dispersed. And I don't know, do y'all know how much we've received on internet sales tax?
Services, I do not. I mean, it comes in as the sales tax as a whole. It's not gotten any kind of breakdown with it. But I have contacted the Department of Revenue, and I am looking, I found the CITUS report, but I'm gonna find out how to actually read it, because there is more to it now that they've got other things like sports betting and all of that stuff on there.
Gonna be coming from me right now.
Well, you're doing us a favor, thank you, keep it up.
No, yeah, I'm doing that, but also I was gonna ask that you add sports betting tax to that.
But anyway, as soon as the Department of Revenue gets back with me, because I put in calls twice in the last couple of days.
I just find it hard to believe that as many packages are being delivered in Oakland, that we have a shortfall, when other places are seeing a revenue stream from it. And I just would like to know, and if it's the state that tells us how much Oakland zip code is getting, but I want to know that surely they've got that. See, the reason why is because, here's why they can differentiate. On sales tax, we collect it. We send it into the state sends it back to the county disperses it to us. On internet sales tax, it goes straight to the state, and then the state disperses it
Back
to the county, and the county to us. So, but that's why I know it can be separated and determined, because they can deduct what we send in to what we're supposed to get back. And I'd just like to know how that works. I'd like to know, because I just think we're missing some revenue right there. I think we're missing it.
Mr. Johnson,
I need to correct one statement.
get you
please.
back, Mr. Case.
Our sales tax has caught up, if you will, and we're right at projections now to what was in the budget. We're not setting the world on fire ahead, but we're right where the original budget projected.
So on this budget tracker, current we were given tonight, it's gonna show us caught up, because it showed us way behind on the
Well,
last one.
I'm gonna step off here. There was a month where we did not receive our sales tax due to the mail service from the time it left the county. We actually got 2 months of the sales tax check from the county trustee's office in the same month. That is probably what threw your budget tracker off.
That's understandable. And that's all I have to go by. All I have to go by is what I'm given.
Well,
You know, that's,
but the larger point is, when you look at what's going on in the general economy, one would think our sales tax would be running
ahead.
further ahead than
Let me
it
get
is.
Mr. Cates over here. Mr. Cates?
Going a little bit further, do we have a list of all the home businesses and know for sure that they're paying tax on?
If I have the addresses, I can check it now that I have my situs report.
Mr. Bowen, could you give her the addresses of everybody that has home businesses? They had to have a permit to get it, right?
it looks a lot better, Mr. Johnson.
I'll have to go back and research because people have, I don't know what year, it started.
See, we done lost contact with who has, who hadn't, nobody even knows probably how many home-owned businesses we actually have. But are we sure we even getting taxes from them? We don't know who they are, how do we know we're getting taxes?
Well, if they didn't apply for a permit, we wouldn't know at all.
I mean, that's just throwing that out there to go with what Vice Mayor Sutton is saying, if we could find out exactly how many home-owned businesses we do have in Oakland, trace it back to what percentage taxes they're paying, we could be losing pretty good right there.
And let me just say, and you may not be aware of this, you were out of the state when this come about, but there's a website that the mayor had access to that would tell what I'm paying as a business owner, what Kroger's paying, what Walmart's paying, and there's a website that you can get into. You may have to get permissions, but you can go back and get Walter to tell you the home-based businesses, if it's a whatever, and you can look and see if that business is paying sales tax. And if not, my suggestion is to report them to the state.
It's inquiry only, but yes, I'm aware of such a site, yes.
But
Inquiry
it's
only.
gotta be a way that we can trace down how many home businesses we have that's in operation. It's gotta be.
No.
If they don't have a permit, we wouldn't be able to, Mr. Cates.
But even the one
But if
that
they
has-
got a permit, Walter should be able to tell us about that.
The other thing we can do, and this will be very labor intensive when we say that, but look at the situs report of businesses that are reporting, sales tax to the state and check that against physical addresses in the city. If a business is reporting sales tax to the state and their address is on Black Ankle, it's a pretty good assumption that's gonna be a home-based business.
Just throw that out there and see if we can find that out.
But that will be very labor intensive to do that.
All right, you two in there, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I think we beat that one to death. Let's move on to the next one. Mosquito spraying, Mr. Sutton.
Yes, what have we done? It's time. They're out.
I have begun to prepare the bid documents. I hope to get that out next week.
Thank you. I'm good.
To follow up on that, Mr. Johnson and I did visit with Mr. James, I believe, the gentleman who did it last year. We did visit with him last Saturday, and so there's been some early communication developed there, Mr. Sutton.
The only thing I wanna make sure is that we purchase a tracking device and supply them. They'll have to pick that up and put it in their vehicle before they ever start, that tracks mapping and speed of vehicle, because that application's supposed to be put down at a low, mile per hour, about 8 miles an hour. I rode with him one night. And, but it'd be low cost.
Oh, yeah.
Then all we'd have to do is plug it in, see exactly where they went, make sure that we're getting what we pay for.
Okay.
All right?
Any other comments from the mosquito? Okay, moving on. Mowing contract, third party outside contact, Vice Mayor Sutton.
And Mayor Brown, Mr. Hahn, Mr. Fisher, y'all may not be aware of this, but last year we were kind of doing some courtesy things on this mowing, to where they were given like extra time, sending 2 letters instead of 1, and not 13 days, so the board asked Mr. Walter to remove that so we could get this done quicker if property needed mowing. So we removed the courtesy letters and times, and we're going by what our policy says now. But we also mentioned in that by this time, we would need to take bids from lawn services that would be interested in mowing some grass. And they'll have to do that. We won't make any money on it, maybe for handling or something small. But I don't think Mr. Ellis has the manpower to go out and mow this as quick as the board is gonna want this. And maybe this board don't agree, but the old board thought that this grass needs to be cut. We don't want it to be 10 foot high. We want everything to look good. So what y'all's,
What did we say, 10 days or 17 days?
13, I believe.
Now, are you referring here to like along 64 and around our signs?
Well, no, it'd be
We're
like
talking about people.
if this gentleman, Mr. Tate, didn't mow his grass, then Harvey could actually, instead of sending our crew that's supposed to be mowing, you know, the side of roads and right-of-ways and easements, he could call that contractor would pay, and then we would bill that person for what the
Let's
contractor
say
did.
there's a vacant lot in Hidden Springs.
Okay,
We would give the owner notice. If they didn't, then we'd have this third party mow it. And now, again, we come back that we would pay that contractor, correct? And then bill the property owner. But it would be more for the smaller spot jobs and things like that.
well, now, we just go along with our friend in the back and his request he made during public comment.
It very well could.
Okay,
And if I may, and Harvey, you speak up on that.
Just for information, at the end of last mowing season, I met with 3 vendors focusing mainly on the area we're talking about, the
yes,
timber
sir.
basins, and I got cost, prices per them, per mowing. I've checked with them, 1 out of the 3 this week to see if their price is gonna be, the same or would they need to increase it. My question is, I don't know how many times we're gonna mow it. For example, I have to deal with the procurement and how much we spend, with a particular, vendor. I don't wanna say the price.
I think me and Mr. Johnson work that out, don't you?
Yeah, we can.
Let me ask you.
I just think that we ought to get a price per quarter acre or something. If quarter acre's our smallest lot, you know, quarter acre, half acre, acre lot, 2 acres, 3 acres, and so on. And I think if we get a price like that, it don't matter where it needs mowing, we can call that contractor out there to mow it. And if they abuse it, then we'll get rid of them.
But we can't go above 10,000 with
That was
an
my
vendor.
concern.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't want to, I wanted to look at it, backing into it, I didn't want to.
Well, if you get to that point.
Well, the
can
only
come
thing you
back
have to have is board approval.
Yeah, if you get to that,
It wouldn't have been a bid at that point.
Yeah.
He's got quotes. It hasn't been a public bid.
Right,
okay,
right.
so you'll follow up, get the public bid, and we'll get started on it. Mr. Fisher?
Too late.
I got you, huh?
He said it.
Okay.
I got something to ask Mr. Pope.
Yes, sir.
Is that gonna affect what I was talking to you about cutting behind these fences where you had the rig to do it? Are they gonna do that at that price too? Like a fence over, or,
Again, the price, yeah, they have the equipment to do what we're doing, all 3 of them did. Again, I don't know if this is the place to discuss it, but, the quotes I've gotten, the lowest one, we could continue to bill for the rate we did last year, and the town would make money.
what about what the city owns, like in behind the nannies?
That's a whole nother thing. I would love help with Park and Rec, someone cutting, getting a contract with that, but this snowballs into a bigger thing. I was focusing on the
Okay, then I think this again is something you need to get with Mr. Johnson about, and then if Mr. Johnson feels it's something that needs to come to our attention, we'll deal with it.
My main purpose, y'all, is we're finna have a lot of grass to cut. The town ain't gonna be able to cut it, and I want a means for them to get bids on cutting grass to where Harvey can call somebody and get some grass cut, because we're gonna be mad that it ain't cut, and he ain't gonna have the man, it's gonna rain for a week, and we're gonna be talking about grass, and he's gonna say, Ken, we've got this amount of crew, we got this many tractors, it ain't cut. But if we get some people on contract, we can get Harvey some help
Okay.
on that.
I think Harvey, Mr. Johnson got the message. All right, moving on. Home-based business inspection, Mr. Sutton.
Yeah, this is something that Mr. Cates talked about earlier, and I just think that we need some kind of system that when we allow somebody to have a home-based business, that that they are held accountable for their actions. I know that I have to get inspected for my business. The fire department comes by and looks at me on an annual basis. How come we don't have a system for them to be checked and to make sure what they're doing, that they don't have any employees, that they're not receiving packages there, that they are just using it for that. So why are we gonna hold somebody that's got a legitimate business and paying for a building and taxes and everything, and then we let these people go in and we never know what they're doing after that point in time? And if we do, tell me about it. Tell me what we do after we approve that business as a town. How do we regulate them? How do we make sure that they're doing what they said they do when they stood up in that meeting that night?
We can't legally go into somebody's house just to see if they have a office in there and doing a home business, can we?
A code enforcement officer can.
Okay.
Fire department can.
I don't know.
Why can't they just be under a yearly inspection like the regular business?
Because it's somebody's home.
So,
It's still,
Mr. Tom,
Still-
can the fire department and the code go into a private home if they have a business license?
Well, they can't barge in, but.
I understand
mean,
that.
yes, they can go, they can request entrance into a home to inspect. I mean, I'm sure that there are, we probably have an ordinance on it that talks about it having to be during reasonable hours and, those type of common sense things. But, yeah, a code enforcement officer can inspect a, home-based business.
what about if they have like the state has some houses that have elderly people in it, and they're being taken care of as a home, like their home residence. We can't go in there.
Well,
The state does.
State.
State does
Okay,
that.
we got
but
state
that's
now.
different
We're talking
thing.
about,
To me, that's different.
We
It's
could
two-
do it from a life
Well,
safety aspect.
there's been an issue of that in Somerville where both the code enforcement and the state, investigated a private residence that was operating basically a
Home care.
assisted living facility.
Okay.
but this isn't a living facility, this is a home-based business on the internet.
Well, but the assisted living facility was a business, is a business.
Okay. We have established from the mayor, from the lawyer and from the mayor, that we can go into those businesses on the practical and
Still think we
proper
may have a problem.
procedure.
Well, I would wanna read the ordinance or.
Yeah.
Practical and proper procedure. Mr. Johnson?
I want to suggest, and this will fall to the staff, we need to step back, and I need to meet with Walter and Chris Pay probably. If we're not doing so, we probably need to establish a file on every home-based occupation. When it was approved, what type of business, to your point, what they said they were gonna do and not do. Was the building inspected, and then if we follow up with it, we need to establish a record, and from what I'm hearing, I'm not sure how much of that we have.
You are correct.
Well, I saw a lady stand in front of the Board of Zoning and Appeals one night, operating a business like mine, and the question was asked to her, how long she'd been in business, and she answered it. I was on social media. There was evidence there that she wasn't honest about that.
Yep.
She was asked, would she be receiving any packages at her house? Now, how in the world is she gonna sell stuff if she's not gonna receive packages or merchandise? So, all they can do is the Board of Zoning and Appeals. I'm not blaming them. They listen to an applicant and they look at it and they do it. They turn some down, they let some have it. So, but I'm just saying, as a town, who's making sure that they're doing what they told the Board of Zoning and Appeals they would do? And so I just think we need some kind of system in place to make sure that's happening.
And follow up with the taxes.
If I understand right too, the one that Vice Mayor Sutton was talking about,
Yeah,
I think she finally admitted that she'd been selling stuff before she even got the permit.
sure did.
But they can get a permit to sell a pair of hose out of the house, but they might be selling shotgun shells and everything else if you don't follow her up and just see what they are selling.
Well, Chief Walls, is he out there in the hall? Chief Walls, how many pounds of fireworks that guy have in his house over there in Burton Place?
Oh, I think it was about 200 pounds.
Was there a tractor trailer there finna unload fireworks
There was,
Yeah, I saw it.
in the neighborhood?
yep.
So, I mean, we need to make sure, I'm done.
We just don't know what kind of preppers we have, do we?
Okay. Moving on. Temporary business signs. Vice Mayor Sutton.
Yes, Mr. Walter,
Yes, sir.
did you find out anything about this?
Yes, I did. That particular sign that you asked me about, the gentleman that put that, sleeve over the old sign, when they bought that building, they went before the DRC in planning and got approved on their, wall-mounted signs because it's on their property. This particular sign that we were talking about is not on their property. They cannot get permission the sign company cannot get permission to put their sign up. I talked to the, Director of Operations 2 days ago, and he told me that he was gonna get Chris Pate and fill out an application, pay to go before the design review to approve the quote temporary sign that he has up now.
So my concern on that is all right, let's just give my business for instance. So I get a set of rules, they tell me what colors I can go buy, channel lock signs. $5,500 later, I have a sign up, okay? Because I complied, okay? And then you got a guy that's been down there for years with a temporary sign it's more or less a banner sleeve that he puts over the sign. And it's not allowed by our planning and review. It's design and review. It's not allowed. That type sign is not allowed. And so, but what are we doing as a town to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do? So after we approve this type sign and that person says, I'm gonna put this type sign up, what are we doing to make sure that they did what they said they would do? Your job's just getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah. You know, the obvious answer is, at some point, 2 weeks, 30 days later, somebody needs to go by and double check it.
I guess I would ask Mr. Johnson if that wouldn't fall under our planner's responsibility to put on his calendar and have somebody follow up on that.
Maybe to put it on his calendar, it probably would fall to code enforcement.
But he would be the one to
to
notify him it's time to
keep
go
track
check
of it,
it.
because it came through DRC.
Yeah.
Just make a note. I'm
Okay,
done. Not a lot of time. All right. Moving right along.
Moving right along. All right, under old business. Street repair report, Mr. Johnson.
You have in your agenda packet, listing, for lack of a better word. About 2 weeks ago, Mr. Ellis and I got out and we spent the better part of a couple of hours driving streets all over the city. And a disclaimer right up front, this is not every street in the town that needs to be repaved or needs to be reconstructed. But this is a listing of some of the streets that we've had complaints on and some of the streets we're aware of. And we've ranked on high, medium, and low in terms of the failure, the condition failure of working on this. It's the 2021 street evaluation. It was in your packet. And if I may, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I think I need to emphasize to you, we already have a contract for this year, and streets are being paved as we speak. I think you're aware of that. So anything we're talking about here would be either next fiscal year, or if we receive the rules and regulations on some of the stimulus money, whether or not it can be used for street paving. We know we're going to get some money under the American Rescue Plan Act. We know we're going to get some money. But the rules and regulations for how that money can be spent, how that money can be accounted for, have not yet been released. And the last thing we want to do is spend money without knowing what is eligible. So this is the list of streets. Harvey, or?
Nothing much to add. As you said, the top of this page shows our current projects,
did we not agree that this was gonna be done twice instead of doing it in
That
the
was,
winter time, it's gonna be done in spring and fall?
I made that proposal, yes, and for next budget year, that's what we'll propose.
So if they laying it now and it's been raining in those holes, are they cleaning all that water out and drying it before they're putting concrete over it, or asphalt? If you don't, it's gonna sink right back in. You didn't need a map, you could just go where we